At our wedding reception, my husband's parents stood up and said, "This marriage will never last. He'll come to his senses soon." My husband looked away. I smirked, clinked my glass, and said, "Then you'll love the surprise waiting in your email." Their faces went pale as they opened it and saw what I had just done. I knew from the moment I met my husband's parents that they didn't like me. They didn't even try to hide it. His mother, Diane, made it clear she thought I wasn't good enough for her son. His father, Richard, was quieter about it, but I could always tell he agreed. They were old money, came from a long line of wealthy, well-connected people, and expected their son to marry someone suitable, which, according to them, meant someone from their circle. I was not that person. I wasn't from a rich family. I didn't go to the Ivy League. I had a good career, worked hard for everything I had, and loved their son more than anything. But none of that mattered to them. They thought I was after his money. They thought I was temporary. And at our wedding reception, in front of a room full of people, they finally said it out loud. What they didn't know was that I had already prepared for this moment. And when I made my move, they never saw it coming. When Jake and I started dating, his parents tolerated me at best. Diane had a habit of making little comments. "Oh, you work in marketing? That's nice. I guess some people like that kind of job." I suppose Jake has always been drawn to, independent women. "So, your family, what do they do?" And of course, my favorite, relationships like yours don't always work out in the long run. But I'm sure you two are just having fun. Jake always brushed it off. "That's just how she is, babe. Don't let it get to you." At first, I tried. But the longer we were together, the worse it got. Then came the real test, Emily. Emily was Jake's ex-girlfriend. They dated in college and Diane loved her. Perfect background, perfect family, perfect pedigree. According to Diane, Emily and Jake were meant to be. Emily always knew how to handle Jake's moods. Emily just fit right in with the family. Oh, I ran into Emily the other day. She looks amazing. We had such a nice chat. She's doing so well. And guess what? She's still single. It was always Emily, Emily, Emily. I finally asked Jake if he even liked Emily that much. He sighed. "Not really. My mom just pushed us together. We were good on paper, but it was never serious for me." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But then I found out that his mother had actually invited Emily to our engagement party. And that was the moment I decided, if they want to play games, fine. But I'm going to win. A few months before the wedding, Jake and I sat down to talk finances. His parents were old money, but Jake and I had worked hard to build our own life. I made sure that whatever we had together, we built together. So I suggested a prenup. Jake was confused at first. "Are you sure? My parents already think you're a gold digger." I laughed. "Exactly. Let's prove them wrong." So we got a prenup. A very specific one. If Jake cheated, I got everything. If he left me for another woman, I got everything. If his parents tried to sabotage our marriage, they lost access to our future children. Jake had no hesitation signing it. I'd never do any of that, so I don't care what it says. I kept the details to myself. Because I knew the day would come when I'd need it. Fast forward to our wedding day. Beautiful venue. Amazing friends. Gorgeous dress. Everything was perfect. Even Diane and Richard were on their best behavior until the reception. Halfway through dinner, just as we were about to cut the cake, Diane stood up. She clinked her glass. And with that fake, sweet smile, she said, "I think it's safe to say we all know this marriage won't last. My son is impulsive. He always has been. But I know he'll come to his senses soon enough." Silence. Jake stared at his plate. His father? He laughed. I should have been humiliated. I should have cried. But instead, I did something they never expected. I smiled. I picked up my own glass. And I said, "Then you'll love the surprise waiting in your email." Diane's face twitched. Richard frowned. They both pulled out their phones. And the moment they opened that email, their faces turned ghost white. Diane's hand trembled as she scrolled through the email. Richard's mouth opened slightly, like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Then, suddenly, "What the hell is this?" Diane's voice pierced through the reception hall. Conversation stopped. Every head turned toward us. Even the band, which had been playing soft background music, froze. I sipped my champagne and tilted my head. "Something wrong." Her eyes snapped to Jake. "You signed this?" Jake, bless him, wiped his mouth with his napkin like we were discussing the weather. "Yeah. Months ago." Diane's face twisted. "Why would you do that?" Richard, who had been dead silent up until this moment, finally spoke, his voice low and sharp. "Is this some kind of joke?" I shrugged. "No joke. It's legally binding." At this point, people were openly staring. Some guests tried to look away, pretending not to listen, but the damage was done. My new mother-in-law had just caused a scene at her son's wedding reception. But Diane wasn't done. She turned back to Jake. Did she gestured wildly at me. Make you sign this? Jake set down his fork. No one made me do anything. Richard's jaw clenched. This is manipulation. Diane scoffed. This is a scam. This, she waved her phone in the air. She's trapping you. And that's when I finally laughed. Because it was so typical. A man chooses to marry a woman, chooses to sign a contract, chooses to make a decision on his own, but somehow, it's still the woman's fault. I leaned forward, my voice calm but firm. Diane, if your son trusts me, why don't you? She blinked, thrown off. That's not the, and if you weren't planning on interfering in our marriage, why does this prenup bother you so much? Dead silence. A few guests gasped. Diane's face went red. Jake, meanwhile, crossed his arms and leaned back in his chair. That's a good question, Mom. Boom. Checkmate. But just when I thought I had one, the real storm began. While Diane was still sputtering, my phone buzzed. I ignored it at first, but then Jake's phone buzzed too. Then one of my bridesmaids leaned over and whispered, Emily is here. My stomach dropped. I turned to her. What? She nodded toward the entrance. And there she was. Emily, wearing a white dress. I could have left. But the worst part? Diane's face lit up the second she saw her. Oh, thank God, she muttered under her breath. And that's when I knew. This wasn't just about the prenup. This was planned. Emily walked toward us, all fake grace and wide eyes. Oh my God, I am so sorry. I just happened to be in town and thought I'd stop by to say hi. Bull. Absolute bull. Nobody just wanders into a private wedding reception by accident. And the fact that Diane wasn't even surprised told me everything I needed to know. I turned to Jake. Did you invite her? Jake looked just as shocked as I felt. Of course not. Emily giggled. Oh, don't be mad. I just wanted to wish you both well. We have so much history after all. I heard someone mutter, oh, hell no. It might have been my maid of honor. But before I could even respond, Diane stood up and pulled Emily into a hug. A hug. At my wedding. In front of everyone. Then she turned back to Jake and actually said, isn't it great to see Emily again, sweetheart? Sweetheart. Like she had just erased the last 5 years of our relationship. Like I didn't even exist. Jake stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. Mom, what the hell is this? Diane played innocent. What? I'm just being polite. Jake looked between her and Emily. Then he looked at me. And that was the moment I saw it. Something shifted in him. He wasn't brushing this off. He wasn't excusing it. He was done. Emily, leave. Emily blinked. Wait, what? You heard me. His voice was cold. Leave. Diane gasped like he had slapped her. Jacob, don't be ridiculous. Jake ignored her completely and turned to security. Escort her out. And just like that, Emily went from fake sweet to furious. Wow, you really let her brainwash you, huh? Jake didn't even blink. Goodbye, Emily. She hesitated, like she wanted to argue. Then she turned to Diane, expecting her to do something. But for the first time in her life, Diane looked completely helpless. Because this wasn't going the way she had planned. Security stepped forward. Emily let out a huff, flipped her hair, and stormed out. And just like that, it was over. Or so I thought. Because Diane? She wasn't finished yet. Not even close. Diane turned back to Jake, furious. You are making a huge mistake. Jake was done. No, Mom. You made the mistake. You and Dad have done nothing but disrespect my wife since the day I met her. Diane's hands shook. We're your family. We're just looking out for you. Jake laughed. No, you're looking out for yourselves. Diane narrowed her eyes. You'll regret this. And then, she turned to me. Her voice was low. Cold. Enjoy your little victory while it lasts. Then she grabbed Richard's arm, and they stormed out of the reception. A few people clapped. I barely heard them. Because in that moment, I realized something. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. For the first time that night, the reception hall was completely silent. Diane and Richard were gone. Emily was escorted out. And yet, as I stood there gripping my champagne glass, I knew this wasn't the end. I could feel it. The problem with people like Diane? They never accept defeat. And I had just humiliated her in front of everyone she wanted to impress. But for now, I had a wedding reception to finish. Jake sat back down next to me, exhaling like he had been holding his breath for years. He reached for my hand. Are you okay? He murmured. I smiled, though my mind was racing. I'm fine. Are you? He looked toward the doors where his parents had just left. His jaw tightened. I should have done that years ago. Yes, you should have. But at least he did it now. We got through the rest of the night. We laughed, we danced, and for a few blissful hours, we let it all go. But in the back of my mind, I knew Diane wasn't done with us yet. And I was right. Jake and I flew out for our honeymoon the next morning. A full 2 weeks in Italy, no stress, no family drama, just us. Or so we thought. We had just checked into our hotel in Florence when Jake's phone started buzzing. At first, he ignored it. Then my phone buzzed. Then again. Then again. Something was wrong. Jake sighed and grabbed his phone. The moment he unlocked it, his face darkened. What the hell? I leaned over. What is it? He turned the phone toward me. I felt my stomach drop. His parents had gone to the press. I stared at the screen, trying to process what I was looking at. A news article. Headline: Millionaire's son marries woman with shady background. Family expresses concerns over sudden prenup agreement. There was a photo of me. A bad one. Taken at a weird angle, probably from social media. And the article? It was vicious. It claimed my financial history was suspicious. It hinted that my past relationships were questionable. It accused me of forcing Jake to sign an unfair prenup to isolate him from his family. It was a hit piece. And it was obvious who had leaked it. Diane. Jake clenched his jaw. This is bullshit. I scrolled through the article, my heart pounding. It was all lies. They even implied that I had been married before, which was complete nonsense. I clicked the author's name. Recognized it instantly. A close family friend of Diane and Richard. Of course. I took a deep breath. They're trying to ruin me. Jake's grip on his phone tightened. No, they're trying to make me leave you. But that wasn't even the worst part. Because then I saw the comment section. And that's when my stomach truly turned. Hundreds of comments. She's obviously a gold digger. He should run. This woman is so manipulative. Why else would she demand a prenup? The parents are right. This marriage won't last. Look at her past. So many red flags. I hope he wakes up. They had dug into my life. Or at least, whatever version of my life Diane wanted them to see. The lies were spreading. Fast. Jake stood up so quickly his chair nearly tipped over. I'm calling my lawyer. I reached for his arm. Wait. He frowned. Wait? They just humiliated you in front of thousands of people. This could ruin your reputation, your job. I took a deep breath. I know. But if we react too fast, they win. This is exactly what they want. He hesitated. What do you mean? I met his gaze. They want to push you over the edge. They want you to make a mistake. They want a reason to say, see? Look how unstable she is. Look how controlling she is. Jake ran a hand through his hair. He knew I was right. But I had a plan. I wasn't just going to sit back and let them win. Diane and Richard wanted a war? Fine. I was about to give them one. But on my terms. Jake watched as I picked up my phone and started typing. What are you doing? He asked. I smirked. Sending an email to a journalist I actually trust. Because here's the thing about rich, manipulative families, they always think they're the smartest people in the room. But they never expect the person they underestimate to be 10 steps ahead. I hit send on the email. A carefully crafted message to a journalist I actually trusted. Someone with integrity. Someone who had real dirt on Diane and Richard. Because if they wanted to paint me as a manipulative gold digger, I was about to remind them who they really were. Jake sat across from me, gripping his phone, still fuming. Are you sure about this? I met his eyes. They crossed the line, Jake. And I'm not letting them control this narrative. I turned my phone screen toward him. The subject line of the email? The truth about Diane and Richard. Last name. The real story. Jake exhaled. He knew. He knew I had just set something in motion that couldn't be undone. But instead of stopping me, he nodded. They deserve it. 2 days later, the counterattack dropped. And this time, Diane and Richard were the ones under the microscope. The article exposed their history of financial fraud, swept under the rug because of their connections. The whispers of insider trading. The time Diane bribed a professor to change Jake's cousin's college grades. How they had pressured an ex-girlfriend of Jake's to stay with him because they thought she was a better match. And then, the cherry on top, sources close to the family state that the recent smear campaign against my name was a desperate attempt to maintain control over their son. A source who requested anonymity said, Diane never saw her as good enough. She needed to get rid of her at any cost. Jake and I didn't say a single word online. We let the article speak for itself. And, oh, did it speak. The internet turned on them. Wow! They tried to ruin her, but they were the criminals. Rich people being awful again. What's new? Imagine losing your son and your reputation in one weekend. Diane and Richard vanished. No public response. No damage control. Because there was nothing they could say that would make this better. But it wasn't over yet. Because then came the real confrontation. We had just gotten back from our honeymoon when we got the call. Diane. Jake stared at his phone. Then he answered. Mom. How dare you? Her voice was shaking. How could you do this to us? Jake was calm. I didn't do anything, Mom. You did this to yourself. You ruined us. No, you ruined yourself. You went to the press. You tried to destroy my wife. You tried to control my life, and now you're mad that it backfired. There was a long silence. Then she hissed, come to the house. Now. Jake didn't even hesitate. Fine. And just like that, we were on our way to their house for the final war. When we arrived, Diane and Richard were waiting in the massive living room. Diane looked rough. Dark circles, disheveled hair. Richard sat stiffly, arms crossed. Do you have any idea what you've done? Diane spat. We have been blacklisted from half our circles. Richard's business partners are questioning him. We're being humiliated. Jake leaned against the doorway. Not my problem. Her eyes flashed. Not your, Jacob. We are your family. That's when Jake snapped. No, family doesn't do this. Family doesn't try to ruin someone's life because they don't like who they married. Family doesn't invite an ex to a wedding to break up a marriage. Diane flinched. You have spent years trying to control me, Jake continued. You never wanted me to be happy. You wanted me to be obedient. Diane's face twisted. We were protecting you. From what? Jake's voice was sharp. From a woman who actually loves me? From a life where I'm not your puppet? Silence. Diane's hands shook. She turned to Richard for support, but he just sat there, jaw clenched. Because deep down, they both knew. They had lost. You have embarrassed this family, Diane finally whispered. Jake laughed. No, Mom. You did. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. I'm done. We're done. If you ever want to be part of my life again, you're going to have to earn it. Until then, we're done. Then he grabbed my hand. Let's go. Diane screeched. Jacob, you can't do this. But we were already walking out. And this time, we weren't coming back. We went no contact. They begged. They sent letters. Emails. Even tried to get mutual friends to talk to Jake. But we were done. Over time, Jake healed. And so did I. Diane and Richard never recovered socially. They lost their influence. Their power. And eventually, when we had our first child, they weren't even told. Because they made their choice. And so did we. And I have never regretted it. Some people think they can control everything. That they can manipulate, lie, and twist people into doing what they want. But eventually, they push too far. And when that happens, they lose everything. And honestly, good.